Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your boy Ryan Morgan, dropping in with another episode of the Recovery Objects podcast. On this podcast, I like to discuss certain topics focused on recovery. Some language or content might be violent in nature. I might say some things that you might not agree with, and that's okay. I will always come forth with non-judgment and integrity. I will always bring an authentic opinion. As a man in long-term recovery, I am dedicated to the process, and it's not my place to work anyone else's program than my own. I hope you understand this is not just a statewide issue. This is a worldwide issue. If we all can work together to fight these battles, we have enough energy to move mountains. I hope you enjoy the show as much as I did.
Yeah! Let's go, boy!
Insecurities are such a tough thing for so many people. Insecurities were such a big trigger for me. Life in itself is so insecure. There's nothing about life that is for sure. If you're living your life on a daily basis as if you're forever, having the awareness that we are immortal beings can shape things in a way it gives your life perspective, a real and raw perspective to have every single morning. If we come to terms with our existence, there is so many insecurities. Once you realize your destiny, you can come to terms with the fact that there is nothing to lose or nothing to gain in this life. You can come into this world with nothing. So wherever or whatever your situation is, it's always property. We have to understand that we will die one day. The fact that we are aware of this, the fact that we can either perish with a positive or negative lens is up to you. We are all for sure that our lives will one day come to an end. I was the type that never lived because I was afraid of dying. This is real. I thought about dying so much, not in an unhealthy way at that time. Even when I was younger, I've been told I talked about death early on into elementary school. They would contact my mother because of some of the things that I would probably say that were super inappropriate for my age range. I don't have the slightest vivid memories of these situations, death of loved ones, death of people that were close to us as a family. I always just took them super hard. Coming to terms with mortality is a very crucial piece to allowing insecurities to be as potent and life-changing as they really are. If you never come to terms with mortality, you are living in a dream world, a made-up world that doesn't exist. You are not living in the real world. In the real world, we are born, we're guaranteed to die, and at some point, you have the chance of shifting your lens to either being positive or negative. You have seen so many people die in your day already. I wanted to tell a little story about a couple in Texas, married for 50 years plus. Their lifelong dream together was to go to the Holy Land in Jerusalem. Because of business, life's choices, it was set off for some time. Once all the babies grew up, all the grandchildren went off to college, and the kids had their marriages, they just never could seem to fit it in. Until finally, at 75 years old, they set off to make their trip together. They visited the places Jesus was supposed to have walked. They also visited the place where he'd walked on the water. They visited their fair share of sights and memories. The couple was so overwhelmed by this experience. Unfortunately, the wife suffered a heart attack in the hotel and died. Her husband was preparing to take her body back to Texas. Then the local people approached and said, "Jerusalem is the holy place. It's the right place to die, sir. Please do the right thing," they asked. "It will only cost you $25,000 for all of the rituals and such. If you were to take her back to Texas, the transportation alone would be $18,000. U.S.'s cemeteries charges are much higher. You will end up spending more money, and after all, your wife did choose to die in the Holy Land. This is where she needs to be buried, sir." The man refused. "I'm taking her back to Texas." The locals then said, "We know you are very stressed, sir. You have lost your wife. You're not able to think straight right now. We will give you a massive discount. Come on, let's do it, sir." The man then again thought about it, but refused. He said, "No, I'm going to take her back to Texas." The locals returned with, "We are going to help you out here, sir. $10,000. You must take this deal." He thought about it again. "Nope, I'm taking her back to Texas." The locals threw their hands up in frustration. "What's wrong with this guy? Why?" The man then said, "In Texas, the dead stay dead." When you come to terms with your mortality, insecurities and both securities will be released from you. Living that daily basis as if you are forever, we are only here for a very limited amount of time. If you thought about this consciously and daily, every single morning, imagine the impact it might have on you. We don't get to take any of our stuff with us. They don't give you a little to go back. I always acted as if I was going to lose something, lose out on something. All we know now, you come into this world and you go. You or I don't get to choose this. We don't get to choose the time. We are all very blessed with insecurities. We all want people to be proud of us.
Go, boy!
We always want to fit in or think that we need to fit in, want others to adapt to us, want others to accept us. You have to understand something, especially in early recovery. There's something called anhedonia, and it'll affect anyone fresh into their journey. I'm not making this stuff up, guys. The best way to describe anhedonia is that fuck this feeling. That feeling of why am I doing this? What for? You immediately will try to talk yourself out of it and why you originally started in the first place. You have such a dissatisfaction with sobriety. Anhedonia consists of two contributing factors. The first is biochemical, the second is psychological. Biochemical. When someone uses it, creates dopamine in the brain immediately. It could be a short burst. Once you get a drug into your system for long periods of time, your brain becomes okay with you creating the dopamine manually. In return, when your brain needs to do it on its own, it's incapable. If we don't have a natural and consistent supply of dopamine, that's what that blah feeling feels like, that lethargic feeling. Psychological feelings are something that someone might feel early on in their recovery. While the effects of the drugs wear off, they will begin to change your perception of others around you. You might feel inept. You might be able to feel inferior to every single person around you, maybe feeling that people are looking at you. You might be thinking that everyone around you is staring at you and looking at you, and that's just your internal thought process. Things might seem so busy, even though you're not busy at all. You might seem like you don't have any time when you definitely have time. When you stop using, your brain begins to create a comparison of why in active addiction was life so much more tolerable. Why was it so much easier? You couldn't see those things at the time, but when you look back and you can reflect, they come to the light. Even though the behaviors are really bad, you still view it as a rewarding period of time. Once people enter recovery, life shifts dramatically. They no longer have that substance to numb them, so the outcomes are much different. Romanticizing about your usage is not a positive quality to have in use during conversation. Nobody wants to hear the one-upping. A lot of times being locked up, you always have those people that want to one-up everybody, always want to be the bigger person with war stories. In recovery, war stories are very beneficial if used in the right fashion. Both of the psychological and biochemical effects are imperative to know what to be able to look out for in early recovery. Relapse does not have to be part of recovery, and relapse should never be looked at as a weakness. This evil is very strong and more powerful than you can ever imagine. I can't even count on my fingers and toes how many times I relapsed, how many times I said I was going to quit, how many times I was done. The evil is stronger than you, and until you know your worth and your value and rely on a higher power to be able to let go of things, it's much harder to navigate. Insecurities will get the best of you. Insecurities will get the best of anybody. Doesn't discriminate. Once you become vulnerable and learning how to actually show up when the time is right, when it matters the most to people, sometimes using your haters' comments or using vivid memories to fuel yourself, not having clarity in what you're capable of is dangerous and something you want to steer clear of. It can cause for things to arise without warning and at such an early, delicate stage. You can't risk this. You might not be ready for this so soon. Just know that not putting yourself out there to be valued or respected is not positive action. You have to start somewhere. They always say, and I believe it, you must start somewhere. I inched my way out. I worked a job that dealt with the public. When I was so heavy, it got to the point where I tried to cover it up so much in hopes that my personality would just overtake everything. For those few hours, it was great. But then when you go home, the liquid courage begins. You get to drown out all that pain. It's not worth it. Changing that voice inside your head, the one that speaks to you, some of the most important conversations throughout your life are going to be with yourself. Talking positively to yourself, lifting yourself up. Changing the internal dialogue in your head is key. You don't have to fit in with others. You don't have to receive praise from these who are seeking it. As long as we are content internally, it will then show externally. I started to realize if I change the way I talk to myself and the honesty you must hold within yourself needs to be heard constantly. From within, you need to get yourself people that love and care about you no matter what your dreams and passions might be. I realized I started saying thank you throughout the day to creation. Thank you so much for allowing me to be able to witness this. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. If it wasn't for creation, neither me or you would be here. I started looking at all my failures as just huge ass blessings. Literally, I was so grateful for the lessons I learned, prison, my addiction, the people I met through my addiction. I started looking at them as blessings and not as such terrible things that dictated my life or defined me as a person. I realized that it was no longer just about me. It was about my family, the people around me, the people that deserve to have me around them. My learning disabilities as a child, I bless them. There's so much more research now and facts on what it takes to be able to empower myself and be able to overcome those things. I don't have to look at them as a disability any longer. I'm not talking about the made up masculine bullshit. Knowing that when you walk into a room, there is no comparison. There's no comparison between you and anyone else. They are who they are, and you are who you are. No one person is better than you. What might be the other man's struggle? What might that man be going through that day? I was told as a kid that others were better than me. Money was the root to all things amazing, and without it, you were just less than, or you were not as successful, until I realized what the definition of success was and the actual word meant. Success could mean so many different things. It could mean whatever you want it to be. Not if you're miserable in your 40s, wasting away with a beer in your hand, as your kid's thriving, growing up without you. You're adding more stress to your kid's life, adding more stress to your kid's future, despicable and petty self-desires. I hope you can live with your decision. Terrible habits will catch up with you. Trust me, I love you. I hate your damn habits. You will have to dig super hard. You will have to understand that there's others in your life that were set up differently than you. That doesn't mean bring jealousy into the equation. You must stay true to yourself, knowing what you bring to the table. You have to give yourself value. The people around you and the people that love you are not going to value you if you don't value yourself. If you don't show them what values you bring to the table, who you are as a person and what you strive for, they're not going to want to be behind your passion. The pressures with trying to keep up with everyday life is so crazy, especially in 2021. So many things going on right now, so many emotions going on, millions of people just like you and me that are trying to survive the same exact way. To be aware of others is so beneficial. Having empathy at a level that is so profound. If those around you are not in check or in progression, then it's going to be very hard for you to align yourself. If correctly, those hurdles are dealt with in a way you don't continue making bad choices based on laziness and lack of determination, I promise you though, don't give up. Going in public, it's very hard to assess certain situations and be able to deal with them as they come on the fly. But you have to be able to learn over time how to deal with those situations. People taking your parking spot, people taking the last thing at the grocery store, people not saying excuse me, people not saying hello, people bumping your door, etc. You have to internally be okay with it and know that it's just them externally showing their internal feelings. You must reassure your mind about your insecurities as they pop up. You must combat them at their weakest moments. If you don't know what insecurities are, you're going to live with them way too long, and you're never going to know what to fix. Practice spending time in social situations that make you uncomfortable. Write out a detailed plan, journal. You must find the root cause. Might be simplistic, lifting weights, going to the park, taking your kids out, spending a day with the wife. Think about your new confidence once you process that insecurity. You can then operate out of abundance and know you're worth it and know your value. Insecurities will always get the best of us, guys. They'll always get the best of us ladies as well. Kids, don't even compare it. Kids have it the worst. If we are insecure as adults, our children are then going to be insecure because of us. They see how we operate. I'm very honest with my child. I tell her everything. I'll also tell Mason at a certain time, but I know that I have nothing to hide because of the life that I've chose to lead. I know that anything that I tell them is age appropriate. I know anything that I tell them will make them understand who I am as a man. You don't have to hide who you are. You don't have to hide that you're different. You have to operate out of abundance. You have to operate out of kindness. You have to operate knowing there's other people that are trying to survive just like you and me. If we think about that consciously, it makes it a lot easier for us to get day to day through a positive lens. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it so much. The response has been amazing with the podcast. I've enjoyed doing it so much. These last couple of weeks, I didn't know what kind of things were going to come up for me, how I was going to be able to process them. And it hasn't been easy, but I figured out a way to be able to get myself ahead of the game. And that way I can deal with my issues earlier on than having to catch up later on. If I combat them as they come up, it makes it a lot easier to breathe at night. It makes it a lot easier to get a good night's rest. It makes it a lot easier to face my day, knowing that I can live with myself 100 and know what I do for my child, know what I do for those around me, my friends, family, those people that I love, my village, making sure that I'm accessible to people when they need me, making sure I'm reaching out to my loved ones, being grateful for them being in my life, sharing that with them, telling them consistently. These are just little things, guys, that we can just change as a whole that we would benefit from so much. Once again, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. I love you all. I just hate your goddamn habits. Peace out.
Go, boy! Let's go, boy! That's what we do, son!
Make sure to check out www.recoveryobjects.com for coaching today.
Thanks so much for joining the show, guys. Please go to cleancause.com. Use promo code CC Ryan Morgan. Over 9 flavors of organic, sparkling yerba mate with low or 0 calories, 160 milligrams of natural caffeine, and 50% of profits support individuals in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction.